Hey there, this is Kat Stancic with the Revenue Accelerator Podcast. And today I have Sabrina Victoria. Now, we're going to be talking about something very interesting. Let me tell you a little bit about her first. So Sabrina is the creator and CEO of the Human Better 365, a human transformation company, and the creator of the Her Vision podcast. Now, she's a speaker, entrepreneur, and author of Envision Your Best Life, 90-Day Planner, and creator of Catapult Your Life in 365 Days. She is the self-proclaimed and also often called Queen of Time. Sabrina focuses on time management and organization as the founder of Life. I love that. So we're going to dive right in. Now, I often find that a lot of entrepreneurs at varying degrees of success, right? If you're still in business, there's some level of success that you're doing. It's not usually the problem of, I really need to learn something new. Now, there is a bit of that, right? And there's skill set and things like that. So we're talking about a little bit more of the established entrepreneur. They're selling something, they're getting going in life, but they're not doing the thing that they know they, air quote, should, right? So what is that about? I know that I'm supposed to do these things. I'm not doing them. I'm avoiding them even potentially. Let's unpack that.
So one of the main things that I always dive into immediately is this big word of procrastination. We always use this blanket word of like, I'm a procrastinator. And the important thing to recognize is there's actually 20 different tactics that humans use to procrastinate. So it's not just procrastination as like a blanket term. There's actually different ways or different tactics that we use. And where it gets a little murky is many times several of the things that we are procrastinating actually have more than one reason. So one of the ones that most people know is like fear of success or fear of failure. There's like the two that are used the most as far as stuff like that goes. But what people don't recognize is there's also perfectionism. There's also overwhelm. So what happens is you start out with, I'm a perfectionist, and if I can't do it perfectly, then I'm not going to do it at all. That's procrastination. But then what happens is you would do that with 5 different things. Then all of a sudden you attack on the procrastination of overwhelm. So, and then on top of that, fear of failure. And then on top of that, fear of whatever it is. So many times the things that we are scared of have more than one term or more than one tactic that we are using as humans to procrastinate. So a lot of that is just kind of peeling back the onion of, okay, what happens if I give up my perfectionism? What happens if I just decide, hey, I'm going to spend this much time doing this, and then whatever it is, and I'm going to commit. If you peel off that one, what does that look like? And then if you peel off overwhelm, where you start time blocking or you start, prioritizing your life a little more, and then the overwhelm opens up. And then all you're dealing with is just my fear of failure or my fear of success. And that's really just digging into the trauma of that or whatever's happened in your past as far as why those fears are coming up. So a lot of times, when people are doing that, where they're sitting on one thing and weeks go by or months go by, where you just need to do that one launch, or that thing that's big and scary, and really sit down and say, what exactly are the tactics that I'm using for this thing? How can we peel those back? So there's maybe just a couple that I can deal with and then move forward.
So you hit on something very interesting. So, some of these are kind of environmental, and some of these are, like spiritual, emotional, almost biological, right? So this concept of trauma, right? So what role does trauma really have, in terms of, like there are things that we can understand, like PTSD, right? Someone goes to war, they see horrible things, they do horrible things even potentially, and then they have to come back and integrate in society, right? That's one level of trauma. And I feel like a lot of people who aren't necessarily have done the self-development work only think of trauma in that way. But there's big T's and little T's, right? When it comes to trauma, how does that in those varying degrees, right? Because there's all kinds of different traumas that span the gamut, right? How does that, what effect does that have on someone creating, let's just general term, create success? Like, what's that relationship like?
So I'm going to use my own story because I hate to project. So real quick, I love telling stories. when I was probably 14, 15 years old, I'm sitting in front of the TV with my family, including my mom, dad, sister, brother, and Beyonce or Janet Jackson, some female artist that's well known was on the TV. I don't exactly remember who. And I remember saying something to the effect of like, oh my gosh, brilliance, beautiful. Look at how much she's accomplished. My dad said this side comment. He probably doesn't ever even remember saying this, but he said, in order to get to that status, that person had to sell their soul to the devil. Right? That would be like a little thing. Nothing traumatic, but I remember that. Okay. So then growing up, I wind up getting into a relationship with a man who had a lot of money and used that money to manipulate me. There was a lot of financial abuse that was happening. One of the things that he would say is, whoever has all the money has all the power. So now I'm stuck in this dynamic of, if I get money, my dad thinks I sold my soul to the devil.
Right.
And if I don't get money, then I have no power.
Yeah.
So it's this constant cycle that everybody has several things that have happened in their life that is putting a ceiling on top of where they are, but it's really sitting down. So I've done a lot of work, but it's really sitting down and figuring out, where is this junk coming from? Where are these crazy thoughts coming from? Sitting down, opening up that box, pulling it out, figuring out what it means for me.
Yeah.
Not for whoever was involved, but for me, and then what I authentically want to do. But yeah, trauma triggers, big T's, little T's, are enormous. And I say, honestly, it is probably one of the biggest issues to go along with procrastination, which that's in there, for halting people from really, finding their potential or creating the potential that's within them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I think like, but it's the little T's that, we don't talk about, because it's sometimes maybe it's silly, right? Or it seems just so individualistic that nobody else probably experiences. I know something that affects a lot of women, men too, like not to discriminate on that regard. But I've worked a lot with women, and I know you have too, is this concept of too much, or maybe even not enough, right? So where does that, because there's a bunch of different things that can play into that, whether it's, I remember being told once, hey, Catherine, because that was when I was in trouble and when I was little, no one wants to hear from you right now. Right. And so in that moment, it's always the 8-year-old, I realized I was too much, right? Because nobody wanted to hear from me, and I was asking for too much. Right. Yeah. So other people have had that same story put on them, and they've picked it up and they've carried it throughout their adult lives. How does that then also perpetuate, distance between achieving a goal and then having to constantly work with that story, essentially?
I say, if you've been told in your life that you're too much, you need to open up a business. Like, you're supposed to be something. What that is, I have no idea, but you need to go into your boss's office right now and ask for that raise, or start some sort of a side hustle, or dive into that business, because I think that those are the personalities that 100% are supposed to be doing something extra. Those people with the spark, those people with that loud laugh, those people with that extra oomph in their life. But as far as dealing with that and individuals telling them that, there's two different types of people. There's people that are leaders and there's people that are followers. It just is what it is. I believe that. I don't know. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but if you've been told that you are too much, I would lead with that. I would lead with the fact that you're too much. I would lean into whatever that too much is, because a lot of times that is what is going to attract your customers. That is what's going to attract your clients to you. There are individuals all over the place that have been told that they're too much in one area or the other, and they're looking for people like them or similar to them to help them open up and to help them kind of blossom into who they're supposed to be.
So what are some things that people can do? Because, we're talking about something that requires a trained professional, right? This isn't just someone can just be like, hey, I'm really good at this trauma thing, right? It's someone who has experience, who's done it, who's supported a lot of people in working through it. what are some things that people, can start to do on their own that helps them continue to tap, maybe heal, right? In order to get to this place where they're not procrastinating, they're not avoiding the thing because they're focused on, the thing that they quote unquote shouldn't.
Yeah. So I'm going to get a little woo woo on you. Have you
Hell
ever
yes.
woo on this podcast?
I think like that's an interesting point. I think that there's a lot of people who are woo. They don't necessarily like lead with it. So go for it. Absolutely.
Okay. I love it. So one of my favorite things, and I need you and your listeners to just think just step outside the box for just a second with me and bear with me. But I believe with everything in me that we are every age we've ever been.
Mm.
So I am 1 and I am 2 and I am 3 and I am 16 and I am 23 and I'm also 29. And every single year of me is actually inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what is being said, depending on triggers, depending on events, certain Sabrinas come out into the world.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, when we are doing our best to lead our life, I'm 39. I'm doing my best to lead as a 39-year-old Sabrina. Sometimes my 27-year-old Sabrina, who's scared or nervous or unsure, because in that era of my life, I was, being traumatized in certain areas, and the nervousness starts to kind of creep in or creep out, I guess. Mm. And the way that I am deciding to take on the world or take on a certain project or build a certain business, depending on what is going on and the fears that are coming up, could trigger different individuals or different ages to get scared or different ages to pull back. And the way that I really like to have my clients envision this is I'm 39 right now. I am amazing. I am brilliant. I have gone through 39 years of craziness, just a crazy journey. I, as a 39-year-old, know a lot. But sometimes my 27 or my 30-year-old comes out and is scared. And my job as the leader of my community is to calm everyone down, to be there, to hug, to embrace, to tell them that everything's going to be okay, to tell them, hey, listen, I've learned so much on this journey. You're okay. You can actually sit down. You can actually relax and allow me to take the lead for all of you. Mm. A lot of times I get real hiccupy when people say solopreneur, because even the solopreneurs, we're not solopreneurs. There's a whole community of individuals that are waiting for us to step up. That, 19-year-old Sabrina, that 32-year-old Sabrina, that 37-year-old Sabrina is waiting for me to take that step into the role that I have journeyed through my whole life to get to. All of this stuff that I've gone to, all of the learnings I've had through all of the trauma has gotten me to where I am right now. And it's my responsibility. And you can take this responsibility on at any age.
Yeah.
But at 39 years old, I am taking on this responsibility of what I now know from my 38-year-old. And each year I am having to step up into a new role, and I'm having to calm all the fears of the things that have happened to me in my past and say, hey, listen, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I now know one more year of stuff, and I'm going to take that learning and I'm going to create, whatever it is that you're trying to create. I think if you really think of it that way, it really kind of eases your mind as far as being able to step up into that lead role.
So what are some things that you did to help you get to there, right? Because the 6-year-old version of you, even 13 and the 16, right? And even now we can still experience trauma that can rewrite, reactivate, reinforce, right? Some things from the past. Mm-hmm. So is it as simple as meditating or journaling, or do you have a different perspective that you see on that or that you want to add to?
I talk to my younger selves all the time. Every single morning I go for a 5-mile walk and I check in with every single year, the ones that are coming to me. So, this is so woo-woo, but like my 5-year-old will pop up and I'll reminisce about what I liked doing when I was 5. And I will reassure like, hey, listen, you did what you were supposed to do when you were 5. Now, what's the one thing that you liked to do when you were 5? Play soccer, swing on the swing set. You're fine. I'm taking care of you. You can go swing on your swing set now. And then my 18-year-old will come to me and be nervous about whatever she's nervous about. And I'll say, hey, listen, what did you like doing when you were 18? You loved listening to, music really loud in your bedroom and talking on the phone with your best friend and, recording songs off the radio back then on her.
Oh my God.
You
gotta bring it back to that.
Yes. With her magazine clippings pasted to the wall. I can't even believe my parents let me do that. And you can now enjoy your time. You did what you were supposed to do when you were 17. And so really just checking in on who's feeling anxiety, who's coming up, who's nervous for whatever the day has in store. Every single night when I go to bed, I have this 90-day planner that I work with, not to like boast or anything. Sorry. But I have this 90-day
hold it up so people can see it.
I have this 90-day planner. It's called Envision Your Best Life, 90 days. We do it 90 days at a time. I'm addicted to it. I've been doing this for over 6 years now, using my own planner.
Look at that, using the process.
I get all my clients on it, but every single night before I go to bed, I actually write down everything that I have to do for that day. Really scary things sometimes. I was just telling you, I just launched my very first mastermind.
Yes.
That was really scary. My fiance was even kind of like the day before, he could tell that my nerves were like this. And I had to really check in with myself and find out who is feeling that, like, because it's not me. Like, it's not my throat. Cause I know I've done all the learnings. I've read all the books. I've dove into all of it. It's not my 39 who's nervous. It's actually one of my other ones that's nervous. So who is that? And consoling that person, telling them I got this, telling them everything's going to be okay. And stepping up into that role. So yeah, it really is as simple as envisioning, pulling them up, having a conversation, meditating with whoever needs to be meditated with. Do I meditate and sit? No, I don't have time.
Doesn't align. I mean, this is important. I think you are absolutely like this when you work with your clients, which is not every strategy fits every person, right? So people who are out there and like, all you need to do is meditate. That's great for the people who enjoy meditating, but not everybody actually enjoys it or can stick to it or whatever it is. And that could be sabotage, or it could be likes and dislikes and all that. But I really appreciate that you're just like, no, I don't want to do it. Like, doesn't matter why. I don't want to do it. It's not something I enjoy. Thank you. Because that is so, like, just highlighting that as part of business is that the things that we need to do need to be things that we also enjoy. Now, we always have to do things that we kind of have to do as part of business and life, but isn't there a way to be able to infuse joy and, desire into those things in some kind of capacity?
Yeah. 100%. Like, I walk and talk to myself. I walk and think.
That's meditating.
Take my notes out on my phone. Yeah, but it's not meditating in the way
the traditional way.
No,
yeah, exactly.
I'll listen to a podcast. Something will pop into my head. I'll turn it off, go into my notes section and write down some stuff.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, the traditional, like, miracle, the whole thing with the miracle morning, I don't know. It just drives me insane. Like, these people go and they think that they have to like carve out this whole thing. And yeah,
isn't that just a sense of control?
Yes.
Right? In a place where there's no control is if I do these 5 things, and I know you talk about that, which is, I mean, it isn't that just time blocking, but they're only time blocking the first part of their day, which in theory should infuse into the rest of it. So I'm going to like ask this too, because I know you're about to say something too, but after that, like, let's talk a little bit about like what time blocking really is and what role it plays in people's lives.
So I time block everything, including showers, cutting my toenails, and lunch free time. So one of the things, if for those that follow me, I constantly talk about working. I absolutely love building businesses. I am all about creativity. I'm all about what's the next step, what's the next level. So when I say this, it's always like, really? I used to be the type of person that would work through my lunch. And I was really starting to notice a slight bit of like anxiety that was starting to come up in me. So about 4 years ago, I decided that in the middle of my day, for at least 45 minutes, I would make something to eat. And I would sit and I would listen to something that wasn't necessarily business oriented. Now, is it still? Yes, because it's usually some sort of podcast that's like helping me mentally, but it's not like dependent on me doing better in my business or creating something that day. So I put my feet up and I relax and I breathe and I eat my meal and I drink something. And even if I finish my drink and my meal before the 45 minutes is up, I allow myself to sit for a full 45 minutes, and that's time blocked in my day. The other thing that I do that I encourage people to do is I time block TV time, or I time block TikTok time. And I think that it's important, if you're finding yourself, one of the reasons why I have a paper planner for 90 days, I'm doing it forever, but my clients, I do like 90 or
90 at a time, right?
3 days or 6 months. Yeah. However, because our phones, a lot of times, when everything that's in my phone, you go to your phone to see what's next, and you end up on Instagram for freaking 30 minutes, and 30 minutes went down the turbs. And that's when you were supposed to be working on your next launch or whatever it is, a new Thrive Cart release. So I went to the paper planner, and a lot of that is just to make sure that I am staying, what is that word? I'm staying accountable for my own time blocks. So the phone and getting sidetracked on social media is not part of my time block. But for some people, having that downtime where you're scrolling is important. So put that in your day. You can do that. What's important is to make sure that you're getting all the stuff done that you need to get done, which is what we were talking about earlier with procrastination. So make sure those big things are written down, and then make sure you're treating yourself with little things, a little break to go eat a brownie, or a little break to hang out on TikTok for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is, something to look forward to, right? So you're working real hard, you're starting to get bored, you're starting to look at the clock, and you realize, hey, listen, I have a 10-minute time block after this hard thing that I have to do is in here to be able to sit and relax. So really doing that whole like work hard and reward yourself is something that I totally am a huge cheerleader for.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know that one of the difficult things is kind of task switching. So a lot of times, when I start getting into that like overwhelmed state, because it happens, everybody gets into there. And usually it means that I'm not, following a process of some kind. And so, the other day I was like, oh my God, there's just so much I have to do. And I had a friend of mine who's like, well, are you task switching? And I looked at my calendar. I was like, oh my God, yeah. I'm going from my email over to this thing, over to social media, over to the podcast, over to this, over to that. And then nothing felt like it was getting done. There were little things, obviously.
Yeah.
But if I had just said, hey, for this next, even 30 minutes, I'm just going to do, reach outs. And this next hour, that's when I'm going to have my podcast thing or whatever it is. It's an easier way to see how you've accomplished something even at the end of the day, versus just these little things that add up, but just don't feel like they really hit the mark on something.
100. Yeah. I remember the first time I read that multitasking wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I just about like jumped off a bridge, because I was the queen of multitasking. That was like my identity, was like, I could do all the things all the time. And when I really sat down and read into that and what that means and how that is not a thing, that's when I really dove into the theory of time blocking and what you're saying, which, the switching, I think is so important. So
well, it kind of played into your recent success with your mastermind in terms of, your mastermind wasn't something like you shared, and it's okay to share, it wasn't necessarily something that was part of the grand plan, right? But it was something that became available, and just from going from concept to sold out was just this flow state for you from what you were sharing. But I could only guess to assume that wouldn't have been able to happen if the pieces weren't in place to allow the flow to come through, right? Like, am I explaining that correctly?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. When things come into my mind, I do what's called a mind dump at the end of every day. So I write down all of the things that happen to be, because I think it's very important to go to bed with a clear slate, a clean white canvas, so that you can dream big and dream bright. And so when Mastermind first got put on the list, then I had to actually time block. Hey, let me take 30 minutes on this day to like research it and figure out what it is. And is that even something that I want to do? And am I using the correct verbiage on what that is? And who else is doing masterminds? And then a couple of days later, like, who would be interested in possibly doing a mastermind if I were to do it? And then, a little bit later after that, actually creating, the content and what it is and the substance of it. And,
yeah.
But it's time blocking that, throughout your week and adding it in. And what happens is when we do a new thing, a lot of times it's like, oh my God, this big thing. But literally it's just 30 minutes a day or 1 hour a day where you just dedicate to that one new idea. And before you know it, in a whole week, that's 7 hours. You can get it done literally from like start to finish, a lot of these things in one whole week, just by time blocking 1 solid hour with no interruptions. Turn off your notifications. I have no notifications on my phone ever. My phone never dings unless it's a text or a call, old school. And that really helps, that really helps get things done.
Well, there's this intentionality, right? And there's this, energy around driving your business or being a victim of it, right? And we can be a victim of time of, oh, I have to do this and this and this, right? And that's great energy to come into anything with. Or there's this, I get to, right? Like I get to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And that's that empowered space, which of course is even more so client attractive. Yes. So how can people get in touch with you? Because you've got a lot of things going on and a lot of resources that are available for people who are looking to really up level their businesses and create more of that success without, I guess, being a victim of their business. So how can people get in touch with you and find you?
Yes. So my website is sabrinavictoria.com. I make it super easy for everybody. So my name is sabrinavictoria.com. And then right in the front, there is a way to contact me, do like a 30-minute free consultation with me and sit down and actually, figure out the barriers that are holding you back in any area of your life. And really, I always dive into time management because usually that's one of the first culprits in it. And really help you kind of peel back that onion and see what's going on.
Brilliant. And any parting words or things you want to leave the listeners with today?
I always just like to say everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so overwhelmed. There's so much. Looking around social media, it seems like everybody is doing just slightly better than what you're doing. And a lot of times that can create some real feelings inside of us as far as not moving fast enough, not doing good enough. And everything's going to be okay. It's one thing that I tell myself all the time, just in my silent thoughts, whenever I feel that rising up, I just reassure myself, like, everything's fine. Everything is going to be okay.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. The link to the website will be in the show notes for everybody to reference. Make sure you go check it out, sabrinavictoria.com, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.